Good morning and welcome back to another 21st briefing. Week in Trenton is going to pretty much focus on Monday, which is a busy committee day, and the 11th, which has an assembly voting session. As usual, when we say that a bill is moving, it doesn't mean it's becoming law this week. Some of this stuff's in committee, some of this is discussion only, some of this is on an assembly voting board, and a committee hearing is not final passage. But this is the point where your input matters the most early on. So if you have an issue, if you're opposed, if you think something needs to be added or clarified, this is where you reach out to the folks hearing about the bill or making decisions on the bill, as well as your assembly representative and state senator. This week, we're going to focus on climate and energy, artificial turf, EMS again, kids and consumer data again, housing and rent pressure again, information on the civic front, and a few assembly voting items. The first major bill is S2338, the Climate Superfund Act. This bill's moving through committee scheduled in Senate Environment and Energy on Monday. Basic idea is pretty simple. Fossil fuel companies are going to be held financially responsible for climate related damages. And the state would use those payments for adaptation and resilience work. We've talked about the assembly version of this before. Um, Obviously, we have climate and infrastructure costs. A lot of those infrastructure costs uh, you know, aren't the result only of climate change. Um, there's a lot of development that's speeding ahead here. So, flooding, stormwater upgrades, road bridge impacts, coastal resilience, drainage, somebody's paying for that. And that somebody is usually us. So, the benefit here is that it would create a dedicated fund for climate related costs, moving some of that burden away from the taxpayer, from towns, and the state budget. Concern's pretty straightforward, too. This is going to probably trigger a lot of litigation and fights over how these damages are calculated, especially when, you know, it's not just energy companies. I mean, developers should be on the hook for this as well. A lot of people are going to argue. And the other piece of this is if you increase the costs on these energy companies, isn't that ultimately going to get passed back to us through higher energy prices or other costs? So there's a lot of open questions on this. Is it really just the energy companies? And if you're going to tag those guys, are they going to come back and tag us? Uh, Big questions. Next bill is S3254. S3254 Artificial Turf Funding Bill. This is interesting. In my community, our town's efforts to put in a turf field, that idea has since been abandoned. Turf fields are a controversial item. This bill would prevent Green Acres funds from being used to buy, use, install, or replace artificial turf fields. It's not a statewide ban on turf fields. It's a little bit more targeted than that. It's about whether green acre cash can be used for it. A lot of towns and school districts are dealing with turf fields that are at the end of their life. And those questions, there are questions that connect to things like cost, replacement, injuries, all sorts of other environmental concerns. So the benefit here is that, folks who support this would argue that Green Acres money which should support open space and recreation, not synthetic turf, especially when there's questions about plastic, heat, chemicals, and actually a lot more than that. The cost or trade-off is that, turf fields are popular for a reason. They can handle heavier use than grass, especially where space is limited, in towns where space is limited. And even if this bill moves, towns and districts might still pursue turf. They're just going to need to find other funding sources. Local budget changes, bonding, private fundraising. So the question is whether or not the state should use open space dollars for synthetic surfaces, and whether those dollars should be reserved for more natural rec or conservation. Next is EMS. A2384. We have been talking a lot about this cluster. We looked at the Senate version last week, I think. The Assembly version of the statewide EMS planning bill. This is also moving through committee. It's in appropriations on Monday. This isn't the same as S1421, which is the more controversial bill that's going to require municipalities to provide basic life support, establish BLS as essential. A2384 does not directly say that every town should do that. This is more of a planning bill. Now, I don't want to undersell it as just a study or just a report. It would require the Department of Health Office and Emergency Medical Services to develop a statewide plan for more comprehensive, coordinated EMS system in New Jersey. Can include regional EMS plans, tailored to different parts of the state, developed through county boards of health, um, and it would be approved by the Office of EMS and updated every 3 years. So the concern isn't about the planning. Planning isn't bad. It's just that most residents don't know whether their town has well, I don't know about most, but I would say a good portion of the state doesn't know whether their town has paid EMS coverage during the day, whether it's volunteer, shared, mutual aid. The benefit here is that it could finally give folks a clear picture of where coverage is strong, where there's gaps, just like we said last week. Concern obviously is unfunded mandates. What happens after the plan? Are the recommendations going to be based on data and supporting and strengthening local EMS, or does it become sort of a preemptive kind of way of putting through future mandates, regionalizing EMS, putting pressure on towns to move into more expensive models? Again, a lot of towns have volunteer squads that their folks are happy with. They're low cost, they do the job. So again, studies are good as long as they're rooted in actual data, and the idea is to preserve what works. Moving on to privacy and kids online, A4015, the New Jersey Kids Code Act, also moving through committee, scheduled in assembly appropriations on Monday. This would adopt an age-appropriate design code for New Jersey and require some online services to take steps connected to how kids use online platforms. And that fits into kind of the larger discussion we've been having about privacy. It's not just about collecting the data, it's what companies do once they have it. And are they using it to design things that keep kids online longer? Are they profiling kids? Are they pushing things that aren't in kids' best interests? So the benefit is the bill tries to put child safety and privacy into the design, baked in, of online services from the start instead of waiting until after a vulnerability is exposed or something bad happens. The concern is going to be implementation. Companies are going to argue that this bill is vague, burdensome. There's free speech concerns. How do platforms know who a child is without creating even more age verification and privacy issues? So this is one of those bills where the goal sounds good, details matter. I think everyone, except maybe the tech companies, would be supportive of this. We'll just see how this all pans out. Then there's two quick consumer and housing related items on the calendar. They're actually back. A4085, also moving through committee, scheduled in assembly appropriations on Monday. It deals with personalized and surveillance pricing. We've talked about this, I think, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Again, the idea is that businesses would be prohibited from using personal data to set prices and set prices for merchant services, uh, depending on the person. It's this idea of two people should get the same price. Your price shouldn't be based on the data collected on you, should be a market rate. Um, and so if we're buying a product, two different people or three different people are buying a product, they're going to get the same same deal. Obviously, the concern that we brought up last time are loyalty rewards and some common sense things that companies do too, that might result in different prices that I think most people would agree with. The second item is A3497, also moving through Assembly appropriations on Monday, housing related, not in the Assembly Housing Committee. It's on the rental side, and it would prevent agreements among, property owners, rental property owners, and it's looking to stop coordinated rent setting. Obviously, the concern is that landlords, property owners, platforms could use systems that they can share, agreements, technology in ways that reduce competition and push rents higher. Price fixing in a way. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. We've covered it. Important thing is that Trenton's looking at algorithms, data sharing, and seeing how that could affect the what people pay for housing. Housing and homelessness prevention is next. A3481, moving through committee, scheduled in Assembly Housing on Monday. This is going to change the homelessness prevention program, and it's connected to a $300 million appropriation. And this ties back to the DCA stuff that we've been talking about, the housing stuff we've been talking about. And again, housing policy sounds great until municipalities are left dealing with obligations connected to that. Schools, traffic, water, sewer. So we definitely want more housing, and it definitely needs to be more affordable. But it needs to be responsible. Now, the benefit of this bill is that homelessness prevention is usually better than crisis response. It's better to prevent homelessness than deal with it once it comes on to into fruition. The state can help people stay housed before they enter the shelter system. And obviously, this is pro family, less expensive, and obviously the downside is $300 million. That's a huge amount of money. And the questions are going to be whether the money is targeted well, who's going to qualify, how it's going to be distributed, and very importantly, how are the results going to be tracked? Will it actually reduce evictions, shelter use, housing instability? Does it become another large program where good intentions are paced by unclear outcomes? This is a real need. I mean, I was working in housing years ago, and I'll tell you that utility and rental funds were the first to go within a month in some of the agencies that I worked with. I don't even know what's going on with that now. So this is definitely a big need. The question is, will it be tracked responsibly? Next is energy grid. A few items here. S631 is going to make the BPU develop a program to incentivize new energy storage systems. This one's moving, scheduled in Senate Environment and Energy on Monday. Benefit is reliability. Battery storage can help manage demand issues, support renewable energy, make our grid a little bit more flexible. Obvious concern always is cost and where this stuff is going to be. So storage systems aren't free. Incentives are funded. Who benefits? Our local community is going to have enough say about when projects are proposed and where. Another major bill is S4296, the Power NJ Act, also moving through committee, scheduled in Senate Environment and Energy on Monday. This is going to create an advanced nuclear energy procurement program in the BPU. We talked about something similar last week. I'm super pro nuclear, has to be part of the long term energy conversation. I'm happy that some of the really irrational opposition to nuclear energy is sort of died down. But we can't just throw out blank checks. So for entering long-term deals, we need to know what the cost is, who's going to carry the risk, what happens if the assumptions that we start off with don't work out. We have a long history of things that sound really great at this state, on the policy level, but then when the bill shows up uh, at our doors and our mailboxes, that stuff is a little bit hard to roll back. Another bill connected to energy is S4411, the Advanced Grid Technologies Act. Again, moving through committee in Senate Economic Growth on Monday. This would require state oversight of supplemental transmission projects to modernize. If we want more power, cleaner power, and a more reliable grid, transmission is going to matter. Always cost is the concern. Who pays for the upgrades? Is it going to be utility companies, ratepayers, developers, the state? Are we sure that these upgrades are tied to what we actually need and not just something that private developers are wanting? S4323, Civic Information and Public Broadcasting Bill, not listed for a vote, discussion only, tax credit auctions, the Civic Information Consortium, public broadcasting, and 15 million. Matters to us because it touches local news. Benefit is New Jersey has a real local news program. It's been taken over by for-profit airline brochure companies. I don't even know what to call them. And residents have been lacking in real information about their school boards, municipal budgets, questioning journalism that asks hard questions and is skeptical. Obviously, the concern here is independence. If government-supported money is going to media, then the public really needs to have strong safeguards around criteria, who decides, or local independent outlets treated fairly. You know, right now, I'll tell you that most local for-profit news outlets are very much, government side. They're going to put out basically what your representatives tell them to put out. Seldom are there questions there. So we really have to push for this money to go to truly independent news outlets that ask hard questions. And being that this is New Jersey, good luck. Another bill is A4. We'll go to the Thursday's assembly voting session. We'll go through this quickly. A4525 extends deadlines for economic redevelopment and growth grant projects. These things face delays, deadlines, need to get extended. Obviously, the concern is accountability. If a project is getting special treatment or credits, we should know whether deadlines keep getting moved and whether those benefits are actually going to be delivered. A4687 deals with acquisition of firefighting apparatus and equipment. This is another bill that we covered. It's relevant because fire equipment is expensive. The benefit here is towns get more flexibility or a more clear process for getting this stuff. Concern obviously is costs. They turn into major expenses, and residents eventually see that in their budgets, municipal budgets, the debt, and taxes. And finally, thank God, A5155, assembly voting session on Thursday would require faster compliance with search warrants or expedited compliance with search warrants in domestic violence and stalking investigations. Obviously, the benefit is speed. These are time-sensitive types of issues. And so faster access to evidence can definitely help prevent a tragedy and protect victims. But we want to be sure that speed does not compromise constitutional safeguards. Search warrants still need clear standards, privacy protections, and accountabilities. So anytime, we talk about speed with something like this, I get really, really nervous because efficiency has been the reason for so many bad decisions. And I'm definitely aware of the sensitive nature of this. So this is a tough one to look at and to see where this lands. So as always, this is the stage where you guys need to pay attention and make your voice heard. Once these bills are baked, it's hard to change them. You can't unbake them. Well, you can, but it's really, really hard. List of bills are in the description. Have a great week.